In the vast and intricate tapestry of human social dynamics, there exists a figure who moves like a ghost through the established structures of hierarchy and interaction. This individual is not defined by the loudness of their voice or the need for a designated place in the pecking order. Instead, they are characterized by a quiet, self-contained sovereignty that often renders them a mystery to the outside world. They are the Sigma, a rare and frequently misunderstood personality type whose very existence challenges conventional social paradigms. To be a Sigma is to navigate life with an internal compass, calibrated to a true north that few others can perceive. This is not a conscious choice to be enigmatic. It is the innate functioning of a psyche that operates on a different frequency. The following exploration delves into the 9 core signs of this archetype, expanding upon each with profound detail to illuminate the inner world of those who have always felt different, providing not just an explanation, but a validation of their unique experience of reality. 1. The unspoken dialect. The Sigma's innate proficiency in reading human energy. The first and perhaps most defining characteristic of the Sigma individual is a preternatural ability to understand people on a level that transcends verbal communication. This is not a skill acquired through years of study or a collection of psychological techniques. It is an instinctual, almost primal form of perception, where others require lengthy conversations, shared histories, and explicit declarations to form an opinion of someone. The Sigma's mind operates like a sophisticated data processing unit, absorbing and analyzing a constant stream of nonverbal information. This process is subtle and continuous. It happens in the background of their consciousness, a quiet hum of observation that picks up on the micro-expressions that flash across a face for a fraction of a second, a tightening around the eyes that betrays irritation despite a smiling mouth, a slight downward tilt of the head that signals shame or deception. They register the subtle shift in posture, the cadence of voice that doesn't quite match the emotion being professed, and the energy, that intangible yet palpable aura that every person emits. This energy speaks volumes to the Sigma. They can sense the simmering aggression beneath a veneer of politeness, the profound insecurity masked by bravado, or the hidden agenda lurking behind a generous offer. For the Sigma, this ability is not a parlor trick. It is a fundamental survival mechanism. They have learned, through often painful experience, that human language is an imperfect and frequently deceptive tool. Words can be crafted, promises can be hollow, and intentions can be deliberately obscured. Therefore, the Sigma places greater trust in the unspoken language of behavior and energy. They are pattern recognizers par excellence. Their brain is constantly connecting dots, comparing current behavior to past observations, and forming a composite image of a person's true nature long before that nature is revealed to the rest of the world. The social consequence of this gift is a peculiar form of isolation. The Sigma will often meet an individual and feel an immediate, intuitive sense of caution or distrust, while everyone else in the room is charmed and disarmed. When the Sigma voices his perception, they are often met with dismissal. They are labeled as cynical, judgmental, or paranoid. Friends and colleagues may accuse them of being unfairly negative or of not giving someone a chance. This creates a profound internal conflict. The Sigma trust their own calibrated instrument, but the world is telling them it is broken. 2. The impenetrable facade, the psychological fortitude of the Sigma's emotional reserve. In a world that often demands emotional transparency as a currency for connection, the Sigma presents a calm, unreadable exterior that can be deeply unsettling to others. While the majority of people use facial expressions, vocal inflections, and overt emotional displays as a primary means of communication, the Sigma maintains a remarkable degree of external composure. This is not an absence of feeling. On the contrary, the Sigma's internal world is often a torrential landscape of deep thought, intense passion, and complex emotion. The difference lies in the expression. The Sigma does not see their emotional state as public property. This poker face is a source of significant social friction. People are neurologically wired to read each other's emotions to navigate social interactions safely. When they encounter a person who does not provide these familiar cues, it triggers a sense of uncertainty and discomfort. They cannot tell if the Sigma is angry, sad, pleased, or bored. This lack of data is interpreted negatively as coldness, aloofness, or a lack of caring. The Sigma, meanwhile, is simply operating on a different principle. that emotions are private and their display should be a choice, not an involuntary reflex. This controlled exterior is a form of psychological armor. In a conflict or negotiation, this trait is a formidable asset. While others may be swayed by anger, deflated by sadness, or manipulated through guilt, the Sigma's unreadable nature allows them to maintain a position of strategic calm. They can process information, assess tactics, and make decisions without revealing their hand or their internal state. This is not about deception. It is about maintaining sovereignty over one's own emotional space. The great irony, and the source of much relational strain, is that this protective reserve is often mistaken for emotional emptiness. Partners, friends, and family members may plead, "Just show me what you're feeling." They interpret the Sigma's silence as a wall being erected against them, a sign of distrust or emotional detachment. What they fail to understand is that for the Sigma, the process of feeling is internal. To be forced to perform an emotion on demand, to manufacture tears, feign excitement, or display a rage they are still processing, feels like a profound violation of their authenticity. It is a draining and hollow act. 3. The sovereign self, the imperative of absolute independence in the Sigma psyche. If one were to identify the central, non-negotiable need of the Sigma personality, it would be independence. This is not merely a preference for solitude or a casual enjoyment of one's own company. It is a fundamental physiological and psychological requirement for uninterrupted autonomy. The Sigma requires substantial periods of alone time not as a luxury, but as a basic need for cognitive and emotional maintenance. This is the time when they can decompress from the exhausting demands of social performance, untangle their own thoughts, and engage deeply with their interests without the managing, questioning, or unsolicited advice of others. This independence is multidimensional. It is mental. The freedom to form opinions, reach conclusions, and solve problems through their own unique cognitive processes, without having to conform to a groupthink or seek external validation. It is emotional. The space to process feelings without the pressure of immediately articulating them to someone else. It is logistical. The ability to structure their day, their work, and their life according to their own internal rhythms and priorities. The sensation of being controlled, micromanaged, or pressured into constant social engagement produces a feeling of claustrophobia that is both acute and paralyzing for Sigma. This trait manifests in practical ways. A Sigma will almost always choose to figure out a problem themselves rather than ask for help. This is not born of arrogance or an overinflated sense of self-sufficiency. It is a simple calculation of energy expenditure. For the Sigma, the process of explaining the problem, managing the other person's suggestions, which may be off base, feeling obligated to accept unhelpful advice, and navigating the social subtleties of the interaction often requires far more energy than simply working to the challenge independently. Their default setting is self-reliance. To those who are more socially interdependent, this can be perceived as rejection. A partner may feel shut out because the Sigma does not consult them on every decision. Friends may feel hurt when the Sigma declines invitations in favor of solitude. Colleagues may see them as uncooperative or difficult to integrate into a team. They interpret the Sigma's need for space as a commentary on their relationship. If you cared about me, you would want to be with me more. This is a fundamental misreading of the Sigma's nature. For the unflinching interrogator, the Sigma's innate skepticism of authority and slogans. The Sigma individual possesses a mind that is inherently resistant to indoctrination. They do not grant respect, allegiance, or intellectual assent based on titles, credentials, or tradition. A fancy degree, a corner office, or years of experience are, to the Sigma, data points, not determinants of validity. Their respect must be earned through the demonstrable quality of one's ideas, the soundness of their logic, and the integrity of their character. If an argument is flawed, the person presenting it could be the CEO or the Nobel laureate. The Sigma's brain will still flag it as flawed. This places them in direct opposition to the natural human tendency toward hierarchy and deference. The Sigma is acutely aware of the Emperor's new clothes phenomenon that pervades social and professional structures. They watch as people automatically nod in agreement when a person in power speaks, suspending their own critical faculties in deference to authority. The Sigma cannot perform this suspension. The part of their mind that evaluates information based on its intrinsic merit, rather than its source, does not have an off switch. This trait is often a source of professional and social friction. The Sigma is the one who will respectfully but directly challenge a boss's flawed plan in a meeting. They are the student who questions a professor's outdated theory. They are the citizen who deconstructs the empty political slogan. To those invested in the hierarchy, this behavior is seen as insubordinate, disrespectful, or needlessly contrarian. From the Sigma's perspective, however, it is the purest form of honesty and intellectual rigor. They are baffled by the notion that they should pretend to agree with something that is clearly illogical simply to preserve the ego of someone in a position of power or to maintain social harmony. The Sigma is not an anarchist by nature. They are not seeking to tear down structures for the sake of chaos. Rather, they are natural auditors of truth. Their wiring compels them to evaluate power structures and ideological systems independently, from the outside looking in. They are the ultimate critical thinkers, unable to accept because that's the way it's done, or because so-and-so said so, as valid reasoning. 5. The lone perceiver of the blueprint. The Sigma's experience of a hypervisible reality. The Sigma often feels as though they are privy to a hidden layer of reality, a behind-the-scenes understanding of how people and systems truly operate, that is completely invisible to everyone else. It is akin to watching a play. While the audience is engrossed in the drama on stage, the Sigma can see the stagehands moving the sets, hear the director's whispers from the booth, and read the script in their hands. They perceive the motivations, the unspoken alliances, the behavioral patterns, and the logical trajectories that others seem blind to. This heightened pattern recognition allows them to predict outcomes with uncanny accuracy. They can see the inevitable collapse of a poorly planned project months in advance. They can foresee the failure of a relationship based on fundamental incompatibilities that others are ignoring in the honeymoon phase. They can sense a coming market shift or social trend by connecting disparate data points that others view in isolation. Their mind is a constant simulation engine, running future scenarios based on present variables. The profound loneliness associated with this trait emerges when the Sigma attempts to share their perceptions. They point out the unstable foundation, the hidden crack, the coming storm, and are met with disbelief. They are labeled as alarmists, pessimists, or conspiracy theorists. Their valid concerns are dismissed as overthinking or being negative. They are urged to just go with the flow and be positive, which to the Sigma feels like being asked to ignore fire alarm. Then, the predicted future arrives. The project fails spectacularly. The relationship ends in drama. The market crashes. The very people who dismissed the Sigma's warnings are now shocked, confused, and scrambling to respond. For the Sigma, there is no satisfaction in being right. There is only a weary, resigned validation and often a quiet frustration. The thought, "I told you so," may cross their mind, but is accompanied by the melancholy understanding that the next time they see a problem coming, they will likely be just as alone in their foresight. 6. The internal alchemist. The Sigma's solitary process of emotional metamorphosis. When confronted with powerful emotion, be it grief, joy, confusion, or anger, the Sigma's immediate and instinctive response is to seek solitude, the common social prescription for emotional distress. To talk it out, to call a friend, to share the burden, feels counterintuitive and even counterproductive to them. Their processing is an internal alchemy. They need to retreat into the quiet of their own mind to sit with the feeling, examine it from all angles, trace its roots, and understand its implications before it can be translated into language and shared with another. For the Sigma, emotions are not events to be immediately discharged through conversation. They are complex puzzles to be solved or raw materials to be refined. To speak about an emotion before they have fully comprehended it feels messy, disorganized, and invasive. It would be like handing someone a tangled skein of yarn and asking them to help you knit a sweater before you've even found the end of the thread. The process requires quiet, uninterrupted focus. This need for emotional solitude is one of the most frequently misunderstood aspects of the Sigma nature. Well-meaning loved ones see their retreat as a sign of shutting down, of not trusting them enough to be vulnerable. They interpret the silence as a wall, and their attempt to help by pushing for communication are often experienced by the Sigma as a violent intrusion into a sacred, private space. This creates a painful push-pull dynamic. The loved one feels rejected, and the Sigma feels harassed and misunderstood. It is crucial to distinguish the Sigma's process from emotional repression. They are not avoiding their feelings. In fact, they are engaging with them more deeply and directly than most. The common external processor schemes the surface of an emotion by talking about it repeatedly. The Sigma dives to its very depths through silent contemplation. They are mapping the intricate geography of their own inner world. 7. The anticipatory mind. The Sigma's life in a world devoid of surprise. For the Sigma, genuine surprise is a rare commodity. Their mind, which is perpetually engaged in pattern recognition and probabilistic forecasting, operates like a sophisticated predictive algorithm. They are constantly running simulations of the future, assessing potential outcomes, and preparing for various contingencies. This mental habit means that when an event occurs that shocks everyone else, the Sigma has usually already considered its possibility, if not its probability. This manifests in everyday life. Friends plan a surprise party, but the Sigma, noticing the unusual behavior, the cryptic messages, and the patterns of past celebrations, has already deduced what is happening. A colleague announces they are leaving the company, and while others express astonishment, the Sigma recalls the subtle signs of dissatisfaction they observed months prior. A global event unfolds, and the Sigma is less shocked by the event itself than by the public shock. As to them, the trajectory was evident in the preceding years of data. This anticipatory nature begins in childhood and sharpens with experience. The Sigma's brain is wired for preparedness. It is constantly gathering clues, a tone of voice, a news headline, a shift in market trends, a change in a friend's routine, and filing them away. Subconsciously, it is connecting these dots, forming a coherent picture of the present that inherently contains the seeds of the future. This is not a conscious, effortful activity. It is a default mode of their cognition. The great advantage of this trait is that the Sigma is rarely blindsided by life. They are psychologically and practically prepared for a wide range of outcomes. They have a plan B and often a plan C mentally queued up. In crises, they are often the calmest person in the room because the crisis, in some form, was already a variable in their mental model. They are the steady hand when others are panicking. 8. The compulsion for depth. The Sigma's relentless quest for meaning and substance. The Sigma is driven by an intellectual and spiritual imperative that renders them incapable of tolerating prolonged superficiality. The common currencies of social interaction, small talk about weather, sports, celebrity gossip, or trivial entertainment, feel to the Sigma not just boring, but like an active drain on their precious life force. They perceive time as a finite and valuable resource, and to spend it on conversations or activities that lead nowhere, that lack depth, or that are disconnected from a larger purpose, feels like a form of existential waste. This relentless pull toward meaning directs their interest toward the fundamental questions of existence. They are naturally drawn to philosophy, psychology, theoretical science, spirituality, and art, not as academic pursuits or hobbies, but as essential nourishment for a mind that craves substance. These fields grapple with the why behind the what, and for the Sigma, the why is the only thing that truly matters. A conversation about the nature of consciousness, the flaws in the economic system, or the symbolism in a film is invigorating. A conversation about a celebrity's new haircut is depleting. In social settings, this can make the Sigma appear intense, serious, or unable to relax. The truth is more nuanced. The Sigma is not incapable of fun or lightheartedness. Rather, their definition of these states is different. For them, true enjoyment is often intertwined with learning, growth, insight, or creation. A leisurely hike is more enjoyable if it involves observing ecosystems and geological formations. A fun evening is one spent debating interesting ideas with a close friend. Pure distraction, for its own sake, holds little appeal. This creates a constant tension between the Sigma's inner needs and the outer world's expectations. The modern world, with its emphasis on quick entertainment, viral trends, and disposable content, can be a profoundly alienating place for the Sigma. They watch as people fill their lives with noise to avoid the silence, with distraction to avoid the questions. The Sigma, by contrast, seeks out the silence and welcomes the questions. They are the explorers of the internal and external universes, and they cannot understand the contentment others find in merely skating on the surface. To live without a sense of purpose, without engagement in things that truly matter, feels to the Sigma like a slow, spiritual death. They are compelled to dive deep, even when everyone else is content to wade in the shallows. 9. The aversion to the cage. How routine stifles the Sigma's creative spirit. For many, routine provides a comforting structure, a sense of stability and predictability that lowers cognitive load and reduces anxiety. For the Sigma, the same routine feels like a cage slowly closing in. The prospect of performing the same tasks, following the same schedule, and encountering the same stimuli day after day, week after week, induces a feeling of mental suffocation and creative paralysis that is both profound and difficult to articulate to those who thrive on order. It is not that the Sigma is incapable of discipline or structure. Rather, their structure must be self-directed and flexible. They require the freedom to follow their inspiration when it strikes, to change their methods, to experiment with new approaches, and to break from the established pattern when it no longer serves a purpose. Repetitive, mindless tasks that require no creativity or problem-solving are especially draining. They are the quickest route to extinguishing the Sigma's inner spark. The Sigma is at their most potent and alive when they're presented with a novel challenge, a complex problem, or a blank canvas. In these situations, their independent, pattern-recognizing, and meaning-seeking mind can engage fully. They can innovate, connect disparate ideas, and find unique solutions. However, when their environment becomes too rigid and predictable, this wellspring of creativity dries up. The ideas stop flowing, motivation plummets, and a sense of restless ennui sets in. This is not a voluntary mood. It is a physiological and psychological reaction to a lack of mental stimulation and autonomy. This trait makes traditional corporate or industrial jobs, with their fixed hours, strict procedures, and repetitive tasks, a particular kind of hell for the Sigma. They're often mislabeled as unreliable, non-committal, or difficult to manage because they chafe against arbitrary rules and seek to do things their own way. What a manager might see as a perfectly functional assembly line, the Sigma experiences as a soul-crushing conveyor belt. Conclusion: the integration of the sovereign self. To recognize oneself in these 9 signs is to begin a journey of profound self-acceptance. The Sigma is not broken, dysfunctional, or in need of fixing to fit a conventional mold. They are a distinct and necessary part of the human spectrum. The observer, the auditor, the independent operator, the seeker of depth, the traits that have often been sources of social friction and misunderstanding, the quiet perception, the emotional reserve, the fierce independence, the skeptical mind, are not weaknesses. They are the pillars of a unique strength. The path forward for Sigma is not to learn how to pretend to be an alpha or to force themselves into the role of a more socially gregarious beta. It is to fully embrace their own nature and construct a life that honors it. This means seeking work that provides autonomy and intellectual challenge, cultivating relationships with those who understand and respect their need for space and depth, and granting themselves permission to process the world in a way that comes naturally to them. The world may continue to misunderstand a quiet individual who moves to their own rhythm. But for the Sigma who has come to understand themselves, that misunderstanding ceases to be a burden and becomes simply a reflection of a difference that is, in itself, a rare and powerful gift. Do these ideas resonate with you? If you found yourself nodding along or reflecting deeply on the traits and experiences we explored in this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts. The Sigma male mindset isn't often talked about openly, and your perspective, whether you identify with it personally or have encountered in others, adds valuable depth to the conversation. Drop a comment below and let me know which part hit home the most for you. Have you seen these traits in yourself or someone you know? Your insights help build a community where authenticity and growth are prioritized over popularity and performance. If you're drawn to this kind of introspective, no-nonsense content around Sigma males' psychological strength, emotional intelligence, and high-value living, there's more waiting for you. Explore the other videos on this channel for deeper dives, actionable insights, and raw truths that cut through the noise. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay sharp, stay grounded, and stay unapologetically real. Until next time,